Okay, we're recording. Thank you for tuning in to this Chat During Naps. I am so glad that you all are tuning in. I just want to let you know that we do have a little one that is awake. I thought maybe the lower lights would help. Today we have on our show Alexandra Crawford, who is a realtor based out of San Diego. She has a wealth of knowledge, not only within the community, but about investing in real estate as a whole. So let's get into it, because we don't know how long this little guy.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us today, Alexandra. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and your business?
Yeah, so I'm like you mentioned, I'm a San Diego realtor. I've been in the San Diego for about 10 years now, originally from New York. So I've loved it here. The beaches, the outdoor activities. I have a daughter, she's 10. So it's nice for, raising a child, a different pace, and just always having something to do year round. So I ended up staying.
That's awesome. And so your 10-year-old, clearly she's doesn't need a nap right now.
we actually have discussions, and the whole virtual school thing, right? So every time she's fairly quiet, but during Zoom meetings, I'm like, look, I have a meeting coming up. Just bear with me for half an hour.
Right.
Don't just try to stay still. But yes.
No, so you mentioned virtual classes. How has your business, had to change due to COVID?
Well, it's actually been, I've enjoyed it a bit too much, in the sense that, I know like it's not like an easy time for a lot of people, but I am enjoying having my daughter home with me. So, just being able to listen into my conversation, see me still working. I do time blocking. So I have a very structured day. The good thing is she does as well. So she has her set up, and then I have mine. So it's been nice. Yeah, then the flexibility.
I've heard that from so many parents, is that, hey, it's given us an opportunity to slow down and really hone in on what our children are up to, what they're about, and spend more time with them. So, it's been a mixed blessing for a lot of parents. How's work-life balance? I laugh because, as moms, I feel like sometimes there is no work-life balance.
Exactly, right? Every work life is incorporated. It overlaps quite often. So it's been good. It's been a busy year for me from a business standpoint. So I've just been working to maintain that balance, especially with my daughter being home. Before I could drop her off at school,
right?
Have my routine, and then just plan meetings as much as possible around her schedule. Sometimes still having to step away when she's off school, but now, she's in school, but not really. So it's just been a lot of adapting, but the good thing is we both like technology, so we find ways to make things work regardless.
Right. Which is awesome, because I like to tell folks, it's no surprise, I am a little bit technology challenged. So I'm glad that there are folks out there that are technologically savvy, a lot savvier than I am. So you mentioned busy. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about what's going on in the San Diego market right now?
A lot. So, it's good for both buyers and sellers, but it still has its challenges, of course. So, the interest rates are low, and there are a lot of qualified buyers and essential workers throughout San Diego County. So, this year, the interest rates are much lower than they were last year. There is also the house prices are higher because there is a housing shortage. I have noticed a shift in that there are some more listings coming on the market now, but we're still around 40% less with listings than we were last year. Earlier this year, it was closer to 50%. So it's gotten better.
Wow, I'm gonna put my camera off real quick.
Okay. Yeah.
So that 40% less inventory, you are busier than you were last. I imagine, without doing a whole lot of market research, that being a realtor is a super competitive industry. how do you differentiate yourself and your business amongst, all the other realtors out in San Diego? Because there are quite a bit of realtors in this area.
Yeah, it is a saturated market with realtors, but I have a background in marketing and education. So I worked in the education field for about 10 years with military, active duty, and veterans, helping them facilitate their education benefits, choosing majors. And I've always taken the approach of doing what's right for the client, for the customer, and really assessing their needs so I can best help. So I take that same approach with real estate. It's not about me. It's about the person that I'm working with, the family that I'm working with. Just taking my time to listen, assess, and make recommendations and a plan as needed.
Oh, wow. Yeah. San Diego is a huge veteran market, so I imagine that helps as well.
Yeah, so it's been it's a interesting, a nice transition. Just it's been pretty seamless, which has been positive for me, and it's made a big difference.
So, what are some additional considerations, right, folks should look into when purchasing a home in an area where there's 40% less inventory than last year?
Well, yeah, the biggest thing is to just be mindful of the fact that there's more competition. So I've always made it a point to educate any person, any family that I work with. And let's just say the biggest part, the most important step in the process, if you do speak to a realtor first, I always say the next step should be, I explain the process. So once someone is pre-approved, we have a game plan, which we then solidify even more after the pre-approval process. But speaking to a lender to really know your purchasing power, know how far up you can go and what you're comfortable with as well. Because a lender has a formula that's used to determine eligibility for a mortgage. But at the end of the day, the responsibility falls on the buyer, the new homeowner, to be okay with what they're paying. So just to be mindful, do your due diligence beforehand, get pre-approved so you're an educated consumer, and then really start the process of finalizing what the must-haves are, what the maybes are, and again, being realistic and mindful. It might take a couple of houses to, a couple of offers before one is accepted, but if you're persistent, it will happen.
Yeah, no, all great points. There are so many books and articles and blogs on utilizing real estate as a wealth building vehicle. From your perspective, how important is real estate when building wealth?
Well, it's very important. I mean, for me personally, and one of the reasons that it was an easy transition for me to get into real estate is because I've always valued real estate in terms of being able to control my cost of living, being able to decide when I want to allocate resources to something else, because I'm not at the mercy of, not being at the mercy of a landlord or, someone else who's controlling your lodging expenses on a monthly basis. It puts the ball back in the homeowner's court, and you get to determine that from the beginning.
Switching gears, what is your favorite aspect of real estate when you are working with a potential buyer? What piece do you enjoy? Is it residential, commercial? What types of property is it? Is it houses, multi-units? Can you let us know about that?
So I primarily focus on residential, but interestingly enough, I have a lot of expertise in land as well. I've dealt a lot with vacant land, vacant lots. And that's something that I've been discovering. It's just a very interesting sector under the residential real estate part. So between houses, condos, and multifamily, and also vacant lots.
Interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more about those vacant lots?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. I'm fascinated. So, vacant lots or land is a hot, um, it's a hot field right now
Mhm.
in San Diego. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And I mean, if you look at it, so there's a 40, about approximately a 40% housing shortage. So when there aren't too many options as to which homes can be purchased, then there's always the option to build. And at some point, these properties and these communities were developed. So that's, where vacant land, where all this stems from is vacant land. There's a lot to know about it. It's not just as easy as, it's definitely an attainable goal, but it's not as simple as buying land and having a house built. There are a lot of calculations, a lot of steps in the process. And then there are also different departments that you have to involve in the process. So it's not just about you planning. You have to incorporate the city or the county, a builder, architect. There are various moving parts when it comes to building a home.
Wow. You bring up a very good point too. When dealing with something that is a little more complex, you mentioned there's so many concerned parties that are involved in that transaction. How have do you spend or do you allocate a portion of your time to building strategic partnerships? And
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, and how do you go about doing that when you hear, when folks hear strategic partnership? I think a lot of folks, business owners, want to cut that development period, that nurturing period, and just hone into, boom, let's just be a strategic partnership, right? What is there any groundwork or foundation that you have to lay prior to calling it that?
Oh, absolutely. Because there's so many, it's similar to there being so many realtors. You have to find the person that's the right fit for you. It works the same way when you're dealing with a builder or an architect. Every builder, well, most builders, they'll have their market or their specialty, their expertise that they want to focus on. So there's like the luxury market or the more of like the smaller homes in different areas. And then you also have there's a huge ADU initiative, the accessory dwelling unit, which is allowing, because there's a housing shortage in San Diego County, it allows homeowners with extra land who meet the criteria to build an additional unit as an income property. So some builders have started to specialize in that. So in part of doing the research to develop strategic partnerships, I have to find the builder that's the right fit. Even, if I'm dealing with vacant land, I want to be able to refer my clients or my prospective clients to someone who can really help answer all the questions and get them from A to Z and feel confident or at least comfortable in knowing what they potentially getting into.
Wow. So I'm just digesting all of that.
Sorry.
Because
once I start talking about land, no, but I'm listening.
You bring up a facet about the market that, a lot of us, especially first-time homeowners, don't even consider. And, it also shows that being a real estate agent, there's a lot of different facets to it and a lot of different, quote, behind the curtains kind of things that a buyer and a seller don't necessarily see. Can you tell us about some, other situations or things where, what goes on behind the curtains, right? What, in addition to, because I know I'm rambling right now. I'm trying to get it together.
Yeah.
But as a real estate agent, the buyer and the seller, they only see you up front helping them either purchase or buy that home. What are some other things that a real estate agent has to do in order to be successful, that's in addition to, right, helping that buyer or seller get that home?
Yeah, and I'm actually huge on education. Maybe it's my background in education, but I put out a lot of materials with prospective buyers and sellers that I get to end up working with, just to explain the process beforehand. So I appreciate questions like this. So in addition to the realtor and the lender, there's also the title and escrow company. The escrow company is an integral part of the process because they're managing all the funds. They're the middle person, the neutral party that collects funds from the buyer, collects funds from the seller, and makes sure everything is balanced out for both parties by the end of the deal. And then with the title company, they, especially as a seller, well, and a buyer for both, as a buyer, you want to make sure that you're purchasing a property that has a clear title. So that is something that's required before the close of escrow. And the title company can help with providing the title information and verifying any answers to questions that might come up. So those two players are really key as well.
Okay. Wow. So I'm going to take a step back, actually. You know, when did you decide to start selling real estate?
I decided in 2018, I was in education, I was a director, and I decided to pursue the field 2018, about mid to late 2018.
Okay, and then with that decision comes a bit of an investment, right? So when did you think, okay, I'm going to get all of the certifications, the licensing, find a brokerage group? When did you really go? First off, were you able to continue with the job that you had as a director, or did you say, you know what, I'm going all in and I'm just going to become a realtor full time?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I started studying about maybe 1 to 2 months later, I decided that I just wanted to go all in and left that completely. Studied for another couple of months because I overstudy most of the time because I want to make sure I understand things.
Right.
And there are a lot of concepts being thrown at you when you're going through the process. So by December of 2018, I completed all the coursework and registered for the exam, background check and everything. Took and passed the exam in January of 2019. And then pretty much just, when I set my mind on something, I just need to get it done. So I try not to overthink. I do overthink things, but I try not to get stuck at thinking without more action. So I took the exam, but I also simultaneously, I was looking up different brokerages, interviewed with a couple, and then decided on one and hung my license probably by around late January or February 1st of 2019.
Wow. That sounds like quite the journey. And you're going to laugh at, I have 2 kids 4 and under, and I feel pretty worn out listening because that sounds like such a monumental effort. How did you stay the course? How were you able to stay focused on achieving all of that?
Well, I'm huge on systems and processes. So and then of course, first and foremost, building relationships. So I've always been in a position where I've met people, networked, built relationships with people. I didn't realize that a lot of the students I worked with kind of developed this level of respect for me just from helping them with their education, because my approach with that was in how I wanted my experience to be when I was in college. And I remember 1 or 2 advisors or people that really stepped in and put things in perspective for me a couple of times and helped me stay focused. So with real estate, it was the same thing. I was just continuing to learn and expose myself to as much as possible to pick up what I could and figure everything out. Because there's so many, like we've discussed earlier, there's so many different areas that you can focus in. There's so many different avenues you can choose to pursue within the field. So just honing in on where I wanted to start and developing systems that as I started to grow, I could help maintain or help my clients, feel comfortable with processes and having an expectation from, is what they can expect from me.
Wow. You said my power word, systems and processes. I can go and talk about those all day long as a project manager, but I won't, because we are coming up on the top of the hour, and I want to ask from your perspective. I know we talked about how we moved in 2020. What do you think the outlook is for the San Diego market in 2021?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So I anticipate that the interest rates will stay where they are, if not maybe drop a little bit more. They have dropped throughout 2020 as is. House prices, I believe, will stay at their the highest they are right now. Also because there's still a housing shortage, and I don't really expect there to be an influx of listings to really balance that out. And then also just watching the moratoriums and the federal protections that have been put in place throughout 2020, just anticipating those to kind of start going away, and to see, unfortunately, some more short sales and foreclosures hit the market because of just how the market has been.
Mm-hmm. So my ears perked up. Did you say that the interest rates will lower even further? Because the last one I saw was 2.25.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why. So possibly, I can't really predict that, completely. But just looking based on the trend, right? So if the housing shortage continues as is, then they could slightly drop. They haven't dropped drastically in 2020. But I do know that from 2019 to 2020, they've dropped at least about 1 to 1 point, almost 1.5 percentage points as is. So they could drop slightly, but realistically speaking, they might stay where they are. Which is, the interest rates are still great.
They're low. They're the lowest I've ever seen.
Yep.
When my parents bought their homes, I'm not going to date myself, but it was earlier, last century. They bought interest rates for something ridiculous in California, like 12.5, near 15% back in that time.
Yeah, no, definitely. And some of the lender partners I've worked with have also said that, this is the lowest they've seen interest rates since they've even been in the field. So hearing that says a lot.
Right. And, I think that's the one good thing for 2020, right? Low interest rates on home purchases and refinancing.
Yeah.
What are your final thoughts that you would like to leave our audience? I wish I had more time for more questions, but what are some of your final thoughts that you'd like to leave our audience of potential business owners, potential homeowners, or home purchasers today?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is that, and again, going back to the education part, and I guess because I know the importance of it, just feeling confident in pursuing one's goals, is if someone's considering buying a home or selling a home, the best thing you can do is to find a realtor you trust and just scheduling a call with them to ask questions, to get some insight on where you could potentially be as a home buyer or a home seller. Because, even if you're not ready today, having the conversation, planting that seed and planning, I do a lot of that. Not everyone I speak to is ready to go the day we talk, or even within months. It might take a year or so, but at least there's a specific target that you're looking to accomplish. And then you can work together with that person to do so.
No, fantastic. Thank you. You've been a wealth of knowledge today. I just want to highlight systems and processes, networking, and action.
Yeah.
I think if we follow those words of wisdom into 2021, we will all be successful. Alexandra, I'm sorry, continue.
No, I was going to say, and I'm always educating myself because I want to provide as much value as I can to those who I'm able to help. So it's a huge factor.
Right. Alexandra, thank you so much for joining us this Chats During Naps, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you so much for the invite. Thank
you, and Happy New Year to everyone that's tuning in. So we wish you the best, and we'll see you next nap time.
Okay,
Take care.